Russian media reports suggest that President Vladimir Putin is set to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in its neighbouring country of Belarus. This will be the first time since the mid-1990s that Moscow would be stationing such arms outside its territory. The announcement comes at a time when the rift with the West is growing over the Russia-Ukraine war, the war that does not seem to be ending. The Russian president said that the United States has been deploying their tactical nuclear weapons on the territory of their allied countries in Europe for decades now. He emphasized that Russia is just doing the same without violating our international obligations on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. Reacting to the announcement, Ukraine says that Russia is holding Minsk as a nuclear hostage. Officials added the move was a step towards the internal destabilization of Belarus.
Александр Григорьевич прав, он говорит, ну слушайте, мы же ваши ближайшие союзники, почему американцы своим союзникам делают, на их территории размещают, учат, кстати говоря, их экипажи, их летчиков использовать при необходимости этот вид вооружения. Мы договорились, что мы сделаем то же самое, не нарушая своих обязательств, хочу это подчеркнуть.
But what are these tactical nuclear weapons? These are nuclear weapons that are used for a specific gains on the battlefield rather than those with the capacity to wipe out entire cities. According to the announcement, the construction of a storage facility for such weapons in Belarus will be completed by the 1st of July. Russia has stationed 10 aircraft in Belarus capable of carrying the tactical nuclear weapons already. Putin added that Moscow had already transferred a number of Iskander tactical missile systems that can launch nuclear weapons to Minsk. Now, why this is raising eyebrows is because Belarus shares a border with 3 NATO countries, that is Poland, Lithuania and Latvia. The United States has reacted cautiously to the announcement. A senior US official noted that Russia and Belarus have been in talks about such a deal over the past year. He added, however, there were no signs that Moscow planned to use its nuclear weapons. The international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons denounced the move and called it an extremely dangerous escalation. Although Putin said that Moscow would not actually be transferring control of the arms to Minsk, such a move must be seen in the backdrop of Russia suspending its observation of the New START treaty. This means that Moscow will not allow NATO countries to inspect its nuclear arsenal. Russia argues it would be inappropriate to allow inspections while the countries are in a standoff over Russia's war in Ukraine. Now, for more on this, we have with us Elizabeth Braw, who is a geopolitical analyst at the American Enterprise Institute. Thank you for being with us. Now, Putin is set to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Is this an escalation militarily, or is this a political move by Putin?
It is primarily a bit of scaremongering by Putin. He has been using the nuclear threats for a long time to essentially remind Russia's neighbors and the rest of the world that Russia is a very strong nuclear power, indeed one of the world's 2 strongest nuclear powers, and he's not afraid to use that threat. Now, placing nuclear weapons in a neighboring country at the invitation of that country clearly is a bit of an escalation, but not as much as his words would suggest. This is more about threatening, reminding other countries that Russia has nuclear weapons that it might decide to use.
Right, Elizabeth, Putin has drawn a parallel with the US having nukes in European countries and says that it is not in violation of any non-proliferation treaty. What are your thoughts on his comments?
It is true that the US has nuclear weapons in Western European countries, and that goes back to the Cold War. It's very well known where these nuclear weapons are. They are in Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, and a couple of other countries, and they are there at the invitation of these countries. Now, the Soviet Union used to have nuclear weapons in Warsaw Pact countries as well, most importantly in East Germany, and it was against that background that West Germany, as it then was, became very insistent that the political leaders of West Germany became very insistent that they wanted U.S. nuclear weapons in West Germany as well as protection. So, and the reason that Russia doesn't have nuclear weapons in its former Warsaw Pact states anymore is that those states wanted nothing to do with Russia's nuclear weapons. So it was not out of kindness that Russia withdrew them. It was because the invitation for them to be there was withdrawn by those countries when they toppled their communist regimes. So what he says is true. America has nuclear weapons in Western European countries, and so he is within his rights to do similarly with any country that may want Russian nuclear weapons. And as we can see, that's not a lot of countries. Belarus is one of very few friends Russia has still today.
Right, and what do you think of the official statements saying that this move was a step towards the internal destabilization of Belarus?
Belarus is in a very tricky situation. President Lukashenko is in power, having been in power for a very long time through a range of shady means, including the most recent presidential election, which he sought not to have won, but he declared himself the winner nonetheless. He has a lot of opposition within the country, and as a result is not particularly safe in his position, even though it is an authoritarian country. So the people can't really unseat him, but nevertheless, he is not in a particularly safe position within the country. Belarus is isolated internationally as a result of his authoritarian ways and his meddling with the election, helping then himself to win the most recent election. So he doesn't have many friends anywhere in the world, and Russia is in fact one of the very few remaining countries with which Belarus does have friendly relations, which has put Lukashenko and Belarus in a sort of a subservient position vis-a-vis Moscow. They would not. Belarus would not be in a position to turn down a Russian request to host nuclear weapons, and that is clearly what has happened.
Right. Elizabeth, thank you very much for being with us on this broadcast and your valuable insights there. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.